Hello everyone, this is Gene and I'm back with another video. So I wanted to cover this video that I just came across regarding the actor Mason Alexander Park, who's going to be playing Gren in the Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, considering the fact that they have taken the character of Gren, right, and have reimagined Gren to now be non-binary. So first I'm going to try to play this clip. I don't know how well it's going to play, but I'm going to play this clip and then I'm going to sort of cover the points that Alexander here uh, brings up, and then just cover the character of Gren in general, because Gren was not a non-binary or trans individual, right? Now, it could be argued that Gren in the original Bebop certainly had body image issues, given what happened to him, right? But that's not the same as being a trans individual, right? Being this male to female trans person or non-binary. And again, it's a case of Hollywood, imposing their will on something that is not even their own creation. Cowboy Bebop is not an American work, and just Hollywood, being Hollywood, showing absolutely no respect to the original work or to the characters therein. So first, let's play Mason's video here, or play the sound to it, I should say. I don't know how well it's gonna play. All right, see what happens. All right. Yeah, yeah.
Hey all, Mason Alexander Park here, and I am on the set of the new Netflix series, Cowboy Bebop. That's right, the beloved Japanese science fiction anime series is being reimagined with a live-action version, and I am honestly so lucky that I was invited to the party. Now, I will be playing my favorite role from the anime, Gren, who is a sexy non-binary icon who in our version runs the front of house for Anna's Jazz Club. Now, the character was originally described to me as the Bowie-esque embodiment of 22nd century handsome and seductive beauty. So thank goodness we have such amazing artists and designers on the show who can make that happen for me. Now, being a non-binary actor who is given the opportunity to breathe new life into an existing non-binary character has been the thrill of a lifetime. It's remarkably meaningful to me because I didn't grow up with a lot of gender variant representation in the media. There weren't a lot of other characters that spoke to my experience with gender or my experience with queerness, and representation matters. It's unbelievably important. So I'm really psyched to be a part of the new crop of non-binary and transgender artists who are given such big platforms to tell their stories, so that hopefully the next generation of queer kids don't question the validity of their experience in the same way. And that is one of the many reasons why I'm so excited for audiences to meet Gren and for people to see our version of Cowboy Bebop. It has everything that made me fall in love with the original, from the action to the music to the genre bending to the costumes, and it's going to be a thrilling ride. And we can't wait to share it with you, but in order for that to happen, we have to get back to set. So please stay safe, wear a mask, and I've been waiting a long time to say this. See you, Space Cowboy.
Okay, so that's the video in its entirety. I first and foremost want to give Mason here credit for actually putting out a positive message. Even if I strongly disagree with their take on Gren, and while I feel that I pretty much disagree with everything he pretty much said in this 2-minute clip, but I will give Mason credit where credit is due for putting out a positive pro-show message, not saying anything that could be antagonistic toward the audience, right? This is the type of video that Danielle Pineda should have put out when it came to the criticism of her costume or her look as Faye Valentine a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago. Had she responded in this manner, I think that the controversy around it would have died down, but she was snarky and mean and antagonistic, and so that pissed people off. So, first and foremost, before I go into everything I vehemently disagree with, I do want to give Mason credit for putting out a positive message toward the show and not saying anything that's going to stir up any additional negative feelings, especially since most people who are aware of the show already know. One of the first pieces of information that came out was the fact that Gren was going to be reimagined as non-binary. So Mason here is not saying anything new or anything that people did not know. So I wanted to start out with a positive first. Now, to explain why I vehemently disagree with pretty much everything Mason here said. Let's go over
Hey all, Mason Alexander Park here, and I am on the set of the new Netflix series, Cowboy Bebop. That's right, the beloved Japanese science fiction.
Let's get something clear. Bebop is a Japanese property, came from the mind of a Japanese creator, was first and foremost made for a Japanese audience, and will always be that way. There's nothing valid about the American whitewashed, blackwashed, whatever you want to call it, the Americanized version, which is more or less like Mason says here, being reimagined. I would use the term bastardized, but I understand Mason working on the show cannot say that, so I will. This is being bastardized. The live action version is a bastardization of the Japanese version. It will never be considered canon or equivalent or in any way, not in the hearts of real fans. There are going to be people who like the Netflix version for what it is, or it'll always be their version of Cowboy Bebop, and that is fine. You're entitled to your taste. But most people who are familiar with the original Japanese version are going to look at this one and just go, oh, another bland American by the numbers adaptation by committee, hit all the check boxes. And well, that's not exactly a good way to tell a story or to do a reimagining of a work that's not even your own. But anyway, let's continue.
Anime series is being reimagined with a live action version, and I am honestly so lucky that I was invited to the party. Now, I will be playing my favorite role from the anime, Gren, who is a sexy non-binary icon.
Gren is sexy, yes. Gren is very attractive. Gren is your classic. Let me scroll up. Gren is your classic Bishonen character, which is common in anime and manga because feminine beauty in men has been a part of the Japanese beauty aesthetic when it comes to their media, in particular their anime and manga, for a very, very, very long time. It's not uncommon in any anime or any manga to have that pretty boy character who could pass as a woman. That doesn't mean he is a woman, however, or wants to be a female. So let's get something clear. He's a very pretty, feminine-looking man. He always has been a very pretty, feminine-looking man. It's possible that the drugs that he was injected with may further feminize his appearance, given that they give him breasts, but it doesn't change the fact that he is a man. He's just a Bishonen, that's all it is. He's a particular character type, a particular archetype in Japanese anime and manga. Nothing more, nothing less. He is not, as Mason describes it here, this non-binary icon. He's never been non-binary, never will be non-binary. That's why you have to reimagine the character in the Netflix version, because the Netflix version is literally taking a character who just happens to be a very handsome feminine man and turning him non-binary, because he literally wasn't that way. You wouldn't have to make this change if he was initially that way. But let's continue.
When our version runs the front of house for Anna's Jazz Club. Now, the character was originally described to me as the Bowie-esque embodiment of 22nd century handsome.
Okay. Well, again, I fail to see where Gren looks anything like David Bowie. I think we've all seen how David Bowie looks. David Bowie had a lot of different appearances throughout his lifetime, but I don't think there were ever anything like this, right? Yes, Bowie was very gender bending, but Bowie wasn't non-binary either. But but that's another thing, right? So yeah, if anything, when I look at Gren, I see what's his name, Laguna, I think it was, out of Final Fantasy VIII. It's revealed throughout the game that he's actually Squall's father, right? I think more of that guy than I do David Bowie. And actually, going through this wiki here, it says that toward the bottom, I think it is. Let me scroll down. That the character designer for the series, Wakamoto Toshihiro, stated that the most challenging character to design was Gren because Gren was originally modeled after Brad Pitt, but Kawamoto had trouble picturing Brad Pitt with breasts. So apparently Brad Pitt was an original influence on the design and not David Bowie, which is actually a little bit surprising given that the show, a huge influence on the show and its themes is Western rock and roll. So maybe Bowie's influence is felt in another way, but it certainly wasn't with Gren. So let's continue. Whoever described the character to you, Mason, was wrong. They were not telling you the truth. Gren was never based, from my understanding, on David Bowie.
And seductive beauty. So thank goodness we have such amazing artists and designers on the show who can make that happen for me. Now, being a non-binary actor who is given the opportunity to breathe new life into an existing non...
Wrong! You are objectively wrong, Mason. You may very well be a non-binary actor, and that's fine. But Gren is not an existing non-binary character. He never has been. He never will be. You wouldn't have to reimagine him as a non-binary individual if he had always been that way. The fact that the character has to be reimagined means that he originally was not non-binary. So no. Your statement of existing non-binary character is incredibly incorrect, especially when you take into account how Gren came about the body that he has. I don't know, because you don't mention in this clip, whether you've actually watched Cowboy Bebop, but I suggest you watch the early episodes. I think Gren is in what, Jupiter Jazz Part 1 and 2? I think those are the episodes that feature him. You may want to watch those to get a better understanding of the character that has been reimagined for the modern American adaptation of a Japanese work from the late 1990s. So let's continue.
Binary character has been the thrill of a lifetime. It's remarkably meaningful to me because I didn't grow up with a lot of gender variant representation in the media. There weren't a lot of other...
Sir, Mason, let's be real. There was plenty of gender variant representation in the media. Okay? Did you not follow the rock and roll scene from the 70s to the 2000s? Your current appearance in this video, you could have easily fit in any rock group in the 80s. Okay? Having gender bending artists in media is nothing new. Artists who gender bend or who are gender non-conforming or who are androgynous is nothing new at all. It's nothing new at all. Now, I don't know exactly how old you are, but you don't look like you're in your 20s. So you might be around my age or perhaps even a little bit older, given that a lot of the actors for this show seem to be casted a lot older than the characters in the show themselves were. So, if you're at least around my age, mid 30s, then you would have been familiar with the rock and roll scene of the 80s at least, and certainly the gender non-conforming elements of 90s uh, youth culture and music. So please don't start with that, right? Maybe there were not characters who were or people who were openly gay, although you had some, right? Melissa Etheridge and Ellen came out, and a few others, right? But it wasn't exactly like a regular thing for an artist to be open about their orientation. But if you're talking about looks, right? A masculine individual wearing makeup and making himself look very, very, very feminine is nothing new in youth culture, and it's nothing new, especially in the music scene. Prince was still around. He was incredibly feminine. He probably had more makeup than you're wearing in this video. So please stop with the whole gender variant stuff. That's not true.
Characters that spoke to my experience with gender or my experience with queerness.
Again, the representation argument. Look, I have no issue with representation so long as representation is done in a respectful manner for any group. But this idea of, oh, I didn't have someone like me who was in the media. Get outside of your own bubble. Find other ways to relate to people, real or fictional, right, than just someone who is your age or your gender or is queer like you or straight like you or this like you or that like you. As I have stated several times, the character I relate to most in all of Marvel is the short, angry Canadian dude with the claws. Wolverine and I on demographics couldn't be any different, but I relate to him because of his emotional struggles. Maybe try to relate to the humanity in a character or the humanity in a person instead of focusing on all these very surface traits. And again, Mason's not wrong when he or they, I honestly don't know which pronouns to use because I look and I see a guy in makeup, but apparently he's non-binary. I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm honestly confused. But Mason here is not wrong when they say that representation matters. I believe that respectful representation matters and organic diversity and representation matters. But again, this idea of there was no one like me in the media. Well, of course, there was no one like you in the media. You weren't in media yet. There is no one like you in media except you yourself. Learn how to relate to people outside of yourself. Right? What was it? The 80s and part of the 90s. It was known as the me generation. I'm thinking maybe this generation might be in a close running when it comes to all this focus on needing someone in media who was like them to relate to.
And representation matters. It's unbelievably important. So I'm really psyched to be a part of the new crop of non-binary and transgender artists who are given such big platforms.
And that's fine. I have no issue with trans or non-binary individuals getting more recognition and attention. That's okay. But there's a difference between trans individuals getting more attention and recognition for their work and getting more roles, and that's awesome. But that should not be coming at the expense of existing characters and existing properties being retconned to fit who you are. That's not how this works. The character of Gren was made long before people ever heard of Mason or anyone else. Gren is a man. He's a man with breasts because of an experimental drug he was given to help him calm down after a supposed betrayal by Vicious, who's the villain of the story. That is not somebody who is trans. That is not somebody who is non-binary. If he were trans, then he would be happy to have the breasts because he would be leaving his masculine gender that he was born with and becoming a woman. That's not what's happening here. Gren is deeply bothered and ashamed by what's happening to his body. He's literally trying to hide it. This is not the character. You're not playing Gren. I don't care what Netflix tells you or what you tell yourself. You are not playing Gren. And I'm all for trans individuals and non-binary folks telling their stories, but their stories should not be erasing pre-established characters. That's all I'm saying.
To tell their stories, so that hopefully the next generation of queer kids don't question the validity of their experience.
Hey, real talk. Real talk. While I'm all for representation, if you have an individual whose self-worth, whose self-acceptance and understanding is so fragile that the only way they will come to understand themselves and who they are as a person, the only way they will come to terms with their gender identity, with their appearance, with their sexuality, or anything else, is to see someone like them in the media. The media is not real. The media is fake. They're always fake. He's literally playing a character. Whatever I think of the character doesn't change, but he's playing a character. He's not being himself. He's playing Gren. He's not being Mason. He's playing a character. Anybody who has to look to the media, who has to look to a profession where you literally pretend to be someone else, to the point where you begin to lose your sense of self if you are in it for too long. Anybody who has to look to media, to actors and actresses and singers and all that for entertainment, for validity of their experience or their identity, needs help, because it means that you have no anchored sense of self, that your opinion, your understanding of yourself is completely dependent on something external. That's the same exact freaking problem most actors and actresses and entertainers have. They have a very low self-esteem, very low sense of self-worth, so they get into a profession where your worth is determined and validated by how much people love you. It's determined and validated by external validation, which is nice until it's gone, which is nice until the same people who praise you hate you. It's a very fickle mistress. Seriously. If your sense of self depends on the validity of an actor representing you, seriously, get help. Learn to love yourself as you are, because you're just looking to a false image, a false idol, a false god to validate who you are. A lie will a lie can never tell you the truth, okay? A lie will never bring you truth.
In the same way. And that is one of the many reasons why I'm so excited for audiences to meet Gren and
You are not playing Gren.
for people to see our version of Cowboy Bebop. It has everything that made me fall in love with the original, from the action to the music to the genre bending to the costumes, and it's going to be a thrilling ride. And we can't wait to share it with you, but in order for that to happen, we have to get back to set. So please stay safe, wear a mask, and I've been waiting a long time to say this. See you, Space Cowboy.
See you around, Mr. Park, or Park Mason Alexander. I honestly don't know what to call you. And I'm not trying to be rude or mean. I just honestly don't know how to refer to Mason. This pronoun thing confuses me a lot. But here's the thing. And again, all credit to Mason Alexander Park. I have nothing against them personally. I just disagree with the message presented here in this video. Now let's look at the character of Gren specifically. This is the Cowboy Bebop wiki, right? And we see that Gren wanted comrades, right? He felt like he was a friend to Vicious, and that Vicious was a friend to him. Now let's get specific into what causes him to grow breasts. So here's what it says. It says, after the war, Gren was tried as a spy by a military court and sent to prison. During that time, he heard a rumor that Vicious was the one who testified against him. Gren had a lot of trouble with this, so much that he was given an experimental drug to calm down. Unfortunately, the drug had side effects. It increased his estrogen levels, causing him to grow breasts. Eventually, he escaped from prison. That is how Gren comes to have the body that he has. An experimental drug given to him to calm down gives him breast. That's not a change he wanted, so you cannot argue that he's trans or non-binary. He's not trying necessarily to be androgynous, and he certainly did not uh, take that experimental drug with the intent or understanding that it was going to feminize his body. Plus, I want to focus on uh, something else here. Let me try to scroll toward the bottom. Right, it says here that Gren appears to have gyno or gynecomastia, males growing breast tissue, which is not uncommon in men taking steroids and other drugs targeting hormonal influences after being forced to take experimental drugs while in prison. So again, these were experimental drugs forced upon him, not something he took willingly, not something he took knowingly, knowing that it would give him breast. But I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. Take a look at the outfits here, right? Take a look at Gren's outfits. You see this simple shirt, pants. See this gray outfit. Let me see if I can scroll down. You see this here. You see this outfit here, pants. This looks like a robe, right? Nothing about Gren's outfits are necessarily trying to gender bend or stand out. He's not trying to make himself look like a woman per se or look androgynous, nor is he trying to have any appearance that's necessarily attention grabbing, right? A slim man in a red shirt and pants with long hair isn't exactly going to turn a lot of heads, right? Here's the way Gren is scheduled to look, or is designed to look, I should say, in Cowboy Bebop. This is going to be apparently the live action version of Gren. This is definitely an attention grabbing appearance. This is an appearance that would make you turn heads. This is completely antithetical to Gren in the original, who was trying to come across as fairly non-assuming because Gren was trying to hide. That was the point. There's a reason why the reveal of his breast happens while he's in the shower, when Faye walks in on him while he's showering. Because when he's showering, he's naked, he's vulnerable, he can't run, he can't hide anymore. This is not someone who's trying to hide from anything or trying to look in any way non-assuming, right? This is somebody who's definitely going to catch double takes and stares. That's not Gren. This may be a different character, and again, I have nothing against Mason, but this is not Gren. This is Gren. And once again, Cowboy Bebop has had to, not Cowboy Bebop, let me take that back. Netflix has done the thing that people regularly complain about, right? They, a Western company, I would imagine mostly, how do I put it? They are a Western company who probably has a lot of pale faces in their numbers, let's just put it that way, are now literally just completely washing over what the character of Gren was to fit modern day uh, sensitivities, right? Or to introduce to reimagine a character as something that they never were. Instead of just hiring Mason and creating an original trans or non-binary character, no, you take Gren because Gren has an element to his story about having, I guess you could say, a trans-esque body, right? Because he has a breast, but it's still an intact male. So I guess you could say it's like a trans-esque body, right? So because he's a character who's had some sort of uh, hormone impacting drugs, right? And who has had his body altered in a very serious manner, right? They immediately take his character, completely disregard his story, and reimagine him as non-binary because there's this one element where you could, I don't want to say argue, but it's like, okay, here's something that people who are trans or genderqueer or non-binary can sort of relate to, right? Taking a drug to alter your body's chemistry so that you develop certain parts of your body that would not develop naturally in that way without that treatment. And hey, if you're a trans individual, if you're a trans woman, and you made that choice and you wanted to develop a feminine body and appearance because you are a woman and that's how you see yourself and that's how you want to live and be recognized in the world, your choice. But that wasn't Gren's story. Gren's story is that he was given a drug to calm down, and the drug has side effects, and it increases estrogen levels, causing him to grow breast. This was not something he wanted. This was not something he was happy with. This is exactly why he was hiding it, because he wasn't proud of it. So again, you're taking a character who was not non-binary, who was not trans, and making him as such because, as you admit here in this tweet, the vocabulary we have today for the LGBTQ didn't quite exist when it aired. So instead of just adding a new element, right, that would speak to today's audience and today's sensibilities and sensitivities as regards the LGBTQ community, you take something that didn't really have anything to do with it. You latch on to one element of it and you run with it. And you completely bastardize the character in the process. And you show no respect for the original character or the original work or how the original audience for that work might receive this. Let's just say that historically, Japan and the LGBTQ tends to not be as progressive or liberal minded as, say, the West on these issues, generally speaking. So you're not even taking into account how the original audience might feel about a work that comes from their country being adapted in the West and adding an element that was never there. But hey, when has Netflix ever given a damn about what the original version of a work was? They made it clear a long, long, long time ago. They don't care about being respectful or authentic to a work. All they care about is getting, Twitter likes and virtue signaling. So I will say this much. While I have no intention of watching this version of Cowboy Bebop, I do wish Mason well. I hope he does, or they do. See, I'm trying. I really am. I hope they do well and that they enjoyed this role and that they go on to have a wonderful, a wonderful career. And I hope they are happy. But they are not playing Gren. This is not Gren. Never has been Gren. Never will be Gren. Not Gren. Gren. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. So please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day and night wherever you are. Bye.